A new political thriller is coming to the small screen. It's called Shoot the Messenger, and I have two special guests in studio with me today on AfterBuzz Spotlight On.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Courtesy of one of my guests. I'm really excited today. So, hey guys, my name is TK Trinidad. I am your host for today. You can find me on everything at TK Trinidad. Today, we are going to be talking about the new show that's going to be hitting WGN WGN Shoot the Messenger. And we have two special guests in studio with me today. We have Elyse Levesque and Lyriq Bent.
Correct. Nailed it.
Yes.
I had to ask first. FYI, we're all Canadian.
No big deal.
Boom. Boom.
It's very exciting and get like goosebumps.
It does.
Anywho, we'll take that. So this is coming. I actually watched it, so I can't really don't want to give it everybody the details. But can you guys kind of tell us a little bit about the show?
Yes. Shoot the Messenger is an 8-part political thriller that focuses around the complicated relationships between journalists, police, and the government, and sort of the trading of information and how that's withheld and distributed and for the public. So the story focuses around a young reporter, Daisy Channing, who's at the beginning of her career. She's sort of balancing a lot of stuff.
Daisy has some problems.
She's got a bit of a messy personal life. And within the first episode, she goes to meet a source who promises her a really big story, and he ends up being shot. And so, anyway, so it sends her down this rabbit hole of like who done it, which is a much larger, massively tangled web. Yeah.
There's I'm like really trying not. So there's you can post up that picture. There's sex involved. There's like sex scandal involved. There's people killing folks. It's
Why has it got to be so surface? There's intimacy involved.
Really?
There are
Human
emotions.
complexity.
Human complexity. Yes.
Misunderstanding.
Okay, look.
She's like, listen, man, it's sex.
The first episode, the scene between you two. That's all I'm gonna say.
Sets the stage.
Yeah, I mean the picture you guys can see. It says it.
We go deep. Gate. We go real deep. Just keep going deeper.
The rabbit hole, I guess. Is that what we're calling it now? The rabbit hole.
So in that particular scene, like I said, we're all Canadian, but we're all. Well, I'm meeting you guys for the first time. Did you guys know each other before you started filming?
We're Canadians, automatically we do.
I know,
we're neighbors.
Right?
We're
Drake,
neighbors.
we know Jake and the Beebs.
We all live within the same set of igloos.
Yeah.
Right.
I get that question all the time.
Insane, isn't it? It's like you harpoon your polar bear for lunch. It's like, no, what? We have houses. We are people. Like,
No, I've not ridden the moose.
Not even the plastic one?
No. But we
didn't.
Each other before.
So was that the first scene that you guys...
Thank God, no.
It wasn't.
No,
it wasn't. No.
We actually block shot all 8 episodes, which is very unusual and was a new experience for, I think, everybody on board, which meant that we were shooting all episodes at the same time. So when we would have a location, we would shoot out that location pretty much, with the exception, there's a few that we went back to, but like all of the scenes that take place in the Gazette, which is the newspaper that I work for, was shot within 2 weeks.
Over the period of 8 episodes.
Over the period of 8 episodes, so all of those scenes. So we actually, I think, did that, which is so funny. The first scene, that was probably within the last month of shooting.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
Yeah, that
then
was
you have because it seems like you guys have a rapport now. Yeah.
Thankfully. Can you imagine on first day?
I know.
I've had that situation where first day, first scene, it's the most intense intimacy scene, and you find a way to get through it.
Well,
I mean, it's not the most ideal situation you want to be in, but when you're in it, you work it out.
I mean, it seems like you're a bit of an expert. I saw She's Gotta Have It. Yeah. I mean, speaking about...
Well,
If you haven't seen that one,
I know a few rabbit holes.
Oh, God.
Hey,
No.
you guys started it.
Okay.
Why is your Canadian coming out all of a sudden?
You all started it.
Yeah, if y'all haven't seen that, the scene that you see in this is, light, but she's got to have it. It's a whole nother.
It's another animal.
Oh, you went further and she's got to have it.
It's an animal.
You
I
jealous?
don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, let's get into the character that you played. So you played the detective. So you're the reporter.
Yeah.
And the thing about this, Daisy there's a lot of stuff going on with Daisy. Daisy is very messy, but she has a lot of great stuff happening with her family, her personal life, etc. One, I don't know if it gets answered or I missed that. How did she get a job at the newspaper being so messy?
Yeah, I know.
Well, that's what makes her
a very
so
good
great.
point. I
she
think
can pull it
the
off.
boss sees potential in her. She's like tenacious.
I think you
determined.
remind her a lot of herself.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's that element at play. Okay. She's a diamond in the rough.
And then Frank was the detective.
Well, Kevin, we had changed the name
It's
later.
so funny. His name originally was Frank.
Yeah, it was originally Frank.
Were they call you Kevin the whole time?
Yeah.
Wow.
Kevin,
I think I put it in my screen and that's what I heard
You know what
while I
it
was
is?
watching
But
it.
a lot of times, everybody refers to me as Lutz. They don't mention Frank
Okay.
or Kevin a lot.
That makes
So,
sense. My bad.
and it's because I've played so many cops by the name of Frank that they changed the name.
Is that really why?
Yeah, because I was just coming off of Rookie Blue. It was
Right.
Frank.
Oh my gosh.
And so I played a lot of Frank cops, to be frank with you.
Ooh, the Frank puns are flowing.
See what I
Oh my
did? See what I
goodness.
did? That's
Flowing
Canadian
hard.
corn right there. Canadian corn.
Well then, so Kevin, Detective Kevin. So like I said, they open with you guys are doing your thing.
Doing our thing.
So I'm trying to phrase it. So you're both essentially working the case, but from different angles, trying to solve it.
Oh, different
Well,
angles, that's for sure.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, we don't know
Initially,
about
we don't
this.
know
We
that,
don't know.
yeah.
Right.
At that point.
Yeah, we're
Because it
just.
hasn't really happened for me yet.
Yeah, yeah, and she's getting like these, covert phone calls and leaving, right after we've seen each other type of thing, and just making a brother feel like he needs a hug, and so she leaves, and then they find themselves in the same place on the same case, and it's like, what's going on here?
That's real complicated.
And so that's real complicated, and Kevin, my character, is really beside himself because this is like a no-no, to be involved with someone who is in the center of my investigation. So a lot of red flags, a lot of sticky situations, and which makes for great TV.
Yeah, what I did like was that there was one scene where I think it was I'm trying to figure out what I should say. There's one scene where you that something happened and you felt like your life was kind of in jeopardy, and Kevin comes and he touches the side of your cheek, and it's like you kind of see the intimacy and there's a relationship beyond the the raw stuff that happened in the first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we try to make these characters as honest and as real as possible, as relatable as possible. And even though the conflict of what's the word I'm looking for? Conflict of interest. There's still emotions, and you try to hide it, but you see someone you care about in a vulnerable situation, it's going to be moving to you. It's going to affect you. So you try and deal with that as much as possible, as professionally as possible in the situation, and I think we did that. I think that came across.
think so.
Jen and Suds, the creator of the show, Sud Sutherland, Jennifer Holness, they were very mindful, and I think it was well done because you have, from a man's point of view, Sud's point of view, and then from a wife's, his wife is also his partner, his producing partner, but you have her point of view. So it was a good balance of going in and not making it too manly and not making it too soft. It was just a nice balance. So those elements were there, and we wanted to make sure that we hit those points as well.
Yeah, it was great. They actually, I think, approached relationships from an unstereotypical perspective, especially in terms of women and how we often see women dealing with relationships, which I think is really interesting. Daisy's not, a damsel in distress or anything. She's very much so her own person. Yes, she's a bit naive and throwing herself into some risky perhaps
Dangerous.
massively dangerous situations. But she is her own person. You know, one thing that I love so much about this character is it's not her relationships with these men, because there's another man who enters the picture. It's
Daisy's active.
Daisy's doing a lot.
At least they're cute. I mean,
Yeah. But
in the room.
her career is more what defines her. Her other things, her family. There's a lot more that defines her than these male relationships, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah, what I really like, you get that aspect of it. Like, it's not the stereotypes, right? But then even the cast in itself, from, you know, just the people that don't even have lines, or even when Daisy went to go and speak to the teacher had a West Indian accent. I'm like, oh, okay. And then you had Somali. Like, it was just a very diverse. And then, you know, Rick Fox. I'm like,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Again, we had to shoot all of this stuff. Yeah, I'm actually, funny enough, I met Rick like several years ago at like a sci-fi convention in London, so it was surreal getting to see him again. But he was such a pro. He, I think, found out, because you knew him, right? You were part of the reason.
Isn't he Canadian too, right?
Yes.
He is also Canadian, so he found out very last minute that he was doing this.
Yes.
Flew in, shot all of his scenes for the whole season in one day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had to shoot him out.
Because he's so busy.
Because he's Rick Fox.
So this handsome bastard comes on the show
Beyond handsome.
and tries to
Yes.
kibosh my career. No, Rick. We were talking about, you know, the casting and everything, and Rick and I had we had previously done this Canadian thing before. It was Canadians in LA, I believe, something like that. And I knew the show was coming up, and I was like, you know, he said he wanted to really get into the acting more and this and that. And so I just remembered that conversation when they were looking at casting. I said, guys, how about Rick Fox? I think he'd be actually good for this part. And they're kind of like, Rick Fox, does he act? And I'm like, actually, yeah, he does.
Yeah. When was, because he was in, I believe it was Queen Sugar.
Yeah,
Like, he's been acting for a minute.
He's been in some other stuff,
Yeah.
yeah. And I'm like, yeah, he's actually pretty good. They considered it, and I said, Rick, if you're down, if you're busy, you know, clear the calendar, because you know, it'd be great to do this. So it was great that it was able to happen. It was a lot of fun.
He's happy that he came. Yeah,
I was not mad about it. No, not
second
at
thoughts
all.
now.
No, not at all.
And then you also have Jamal McGlory was in there, made a
Yes.
appearance as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
So like I said, it's definitely a diverse cast, but it also touched on a lot of different aspects. You know, from the relationships that Daisy has to the relationships that other married couples have with other
Oh, yeah.
folks, and
Absolutely.
and it's very messy. But the great thing about that is that's life. Like, nobody's you know, one dimensional.
I didn't want to
Not-
chime in
no,
and say
sorry,
that,
yeah.
but that's exactly what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's supposed to paint the picture of you know, the people watching, because as much as we think we have it all under control, our lives are pretty messy with details and little nuances, and because it's all emotional, and emotion is not a very pretty thing. It doesn't come neatly wrapped in a package. So when you have the opportunity with a show like this to express those emotions and not really be apologetic about it, you got to run with it, because that's what makes your show relatable. That's what makes it a hit, because of those moments.
So on future projects or other scripts that you're looking at, like for I think with people, you know, their lives are so messy that they almost want to see something that's not messy.
Sometimes,
right?
yeah.
And it feels like now, you know, we were talking about Black Panther and stuff like that. That movie in itself had so many aspects of it, and it's also touching on the fact that, you know, Black folks are not one-dimensional. So do you feel like that's the shift that we're going to go into, where we're going to see things that are more real, and we're going to see people that are, you know, she might be the housewife, but she has a million other things going on, and, you know, that's part of life?
I absolutely think so. I think, you know, we're moving into an era where the audience is getting smarter and smarter. And a part of that, I think, is like the age we live in, where there's social media and there's so much being put out there constantly. Reality TV, like it or not, kind of, you know, I think in a way maybe made audiences want to see more authenticity, even though reality TV is not that authentic.
Scripted.
Yeah, but yeah, I think, you know, things like HBO and Netflix have really paved the way for some really honest storytelling. I think I think, yeah, of course, sometimes we want to go and forget our lives, but I think more so we want to see ourselves represented and watch something and go, oh, I understand, that's my life. And if that person can get through that, so can I. I think that's why we go to the movies, is to feel less alone.
And I think that shift has been in the making for a while. I personally have felt the shift. Being an actor, always looking for certain roles, especially as a visible minority at the time, you you tend to see what's being put out there. And I started noticing not the actual material, but the attitude of people, writers. Even if they didn't have their work out there to be submitted to actors, you saw, or I heard writers talking, and I would sense the direction in which they wanted to write their stories about, and I can feel the shift. And I remember saying to my manager, there's a shift happening that I really feel strongly about, and I want to focus on that area. And if you take a look at the last maybe 4 projects that I have done, it's all within that shift. And I've always thought that, you know, women were going to be the center point of our industry because it was so necessary and it was so overdue. I noticed it from 2005, and that's when I started pushing towards working with women producers, directors, you know, who were actually the storytellers or the creators. And my first job was Take the Lead, where Fryman, what was her name? Can't remember her first name, but she, from that moment, that's when I was like, yes, this is what I was feeling. This is what that needs to happen more. And so to see it happening and being a part of it is definitely, for me, the right direction. So I like what the Netflix and the HBOs and the Amazons are doing, because they've raised the bar for network television. You know?
Well, see here, there's a question with that. So now you have the Netflix, you have the Amazon, you have the Hulu.
Liz Fryman.
Liz Fryman. Shout out to Liz.
Shout out Liz.
You have the Netflix, Amazons, Hulu, YouTube has something, like all these stuff. Now you have, you know, plus, you know, what we had
Snapchat
before.
is starting like
All that stuff, and you have so much content going out there. As actors, you know, you put your heart and soul into a project, but, you know, I think I was telling you, like, Orphan Black. Like, I've seen a few episodes, but I want to see it. It's on my queue to see it, but there's so much content.
Oh my gosh, it's overwhelming.
Yeah, so as an actor, how do you feel with, like, obviously, you know, there's jobs, so, you know, getting paid is great.
Yeah.
But, you know, now not everybody can appreciate the work. One, they might not know it's there, or two, it's, you know, waiting in the queue to be seen. So do you think there's going to be a healthy medium between them, or where do you foresee, you know, the industry kind of going?
Oh, man.
I think because that's I'm in the business of show, so I think about the business aspect first. At the end of the day, you have to make choices, and what is happening right now is excellent for actors, because now you have a little bit more control of your destiny, where before you kind of had to react to the mercy, you know, you're at the mercy of the content makers. Now, because there's so many, you can choose, and you can not feel like you're going to miss out, because there is so much content and there's so many platforms for this content. Before, you would make something and never see the light of day. Now you can make content, it'll be seen because there are platforms for it.
Right.
So you have to start thinking from a business point of view, and a brand point of view. What is it that you want out there in terms of your brand, right? And you don't have to jump at everything. It's not going to be easy. You just have to stick to what it is that you want your brand to be, and make those tough choices, and know that there's another one waiting, and you just gotta really stand your ground. That's how I think, though. So if you don't think that way, you just want to collect that paycheck, then it's also a bonus. You'll be working constantly. It'll sit in the queue and not see the light of day, but you're working. So it all depends on your mindset, and I ain't knocking either one. It's just, you know, it's all subjective.
I think one of the things that's actually really great about the Netflix and the Amazon and the Hulus is that it's giving artists, I think, permission to tell the stories that they want to tell more so than cable, like than some of the other networks and stuff that are out there. It seems like they don't have to worry about being overtly provocative or anything. Like they can make the show that they want to make.
Right.
That's what it seems like. Anyway, I don't know much about behind the scenes, but from this side of it, that's how it's coming across. Like they're able to have artistic freedom. So that's exciting, I think, as an actor. There's almost every show that you see on Netflix is like incredible for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just oh, I get to show a nipple here or a titty there.
It's not not that. It's the message.
Great storytelling.
Yeah.
It's great storytelling, and it's telling a story and not worrying about censoring it because it might be on free television and. A minor might see it.
Right.
You have a station that you specifically pay for to watch certain films, and the masses have gone in that direction, which means they want it.
Yeah.
And you're not being dictated to in terms of what you're seeing all the time.
Right.
So I think it's just a nice outlet to have, and all these platform networks are they've cashed in on something.
Yeah, it's crazy because I think Netflix had started with like Orange is New Black, and then all of a sudden they have
all of
All
these.
these other
I mean,
ones.
every
It's like a
day
new
you go on there,
billboard,
there's
yeah.
a new series. I mean, it is overwhelming. There's so much. I
not
finally
complaining.
started watching, and it's not on Netflix, but Game of Thrones. I finally
that's on my queue to watch too. Like I just
started watching it, and I'm at season 4, and I had to take a break because like I got busy, and oh man, and now I'm just worried that I won't pick it back up, and I'll get distracted with.
you have to like just power like it
You
feels
do.
like work. Like you have to power through.
That's why I
Yeah.
started over the holidays when I actually had some downtime, but.
But the
Yeah.
behavior, social behavior is what's dictated also the platform networks. It's the behavior of the viewer, wanting to have the power to dictate their own time.
Yeah, we don't have time for commercials anymore.
I know, right?
And with that being said, we want you to be dictated to with Shoot the Messenger on WGN America every Monday at 10 p.m. 9 Central.
Thank you for bringing it
Tune
around.
in every Monday because you don't have the option
Just
of
because
going
you can't
on
stream
platform.
it and watch it all at once.
You can't binge watch it,
Yeah.
but that's the balance. That's a beautiful balance that you want to have where you can watch something for an hour and walk away and do other things in life. When you have that flu and you're down for 3 days, then you can binge watch, But it's gotten into that point where binge watching is what's dictated the platform. And that's why the platform networks are pumping them out because there's a demand for
That's
them.
what the people want.
Yeah.
Our attention span has gone from like.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it was small 10 years ago. Now it's kind
Yeah.
of crazy.
Yeah.
But that's what makes different shows stand out.
Yeah.
So, like for instance, I binged watched Empire recently, and the thing about that show is that after every episode, like it was such great content and such great writing that even if I had to wait for a week, like I want to see what happened. And that's the great thing about Shoot the Messenger is like every episode it's just like, okay, well,
Yeah.
Daisy's doing something
There's
stupid. Like,
always a good cliffhanger
Yeah.
that makes you want to come
But it would
back
make
and see
for
what
an
happened.
excellent binger too because it's like a continuous story.
Right.
Also, it's so smart that like you almost need to watch it consecutively to keep track of who's
going
who
on.
and the story. It's like when you read a really complicated novel and you put it down, you pick it back up and you're like, wait, who, what is
There are a
going
lot of moving
on?
parts.
There's a lot of moving parts that you have to really.
And I
pay
think
attention.
they knew that, and so they recap every episode so that it puts you right back on track.
Yeah.
So
Kind of
that
gives you the
when
highlights.
it gives you the highlights with the recap, and because it is
There's so many names.
complex.
You're like,
Because the thing
What
is,
am I
you're
talking
like
about?
wondering, like, oh wait, what's going on? Like, obviously, I've said that they have some type of a relationship, and you're like, okay, well, what's going on in this relationship? And then you make mention of like your son. I'm like, wait a minute, what happened? Like,
Where did that come in?
Yeah,
Yeah.
where I didn't see them again. So
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it kind of drops in nice little tidbits, but that's what makes for like a good show. Like, you can binge watch some shows, but you're just binge watching it for, okay, it's there, it's funny, but you can You know, some shows you actually remember what happens.
Yeah,
and this is one of those shows where it's like you remember the storyline because it's just so, and it's not even outrageous anymore because it's just things that people do behind for years.
It's very true, and a lot of it
It's
is
very
based
vivid,
on real, loosely based on real stories. So
these stories are ripped right out of the headlines for the most part.
The judge with the...
I think, well, definitely the key, the Attorney General's plotline, and also my character is actually loosely based on someone. Yeah. I have to
These
say
things
that.
go down. These characters
Well,
are
I
real
know,
people.
but like the Attorney General.
What? Politicians
There was
are
I
the
know,
worst.
but I'm trying to think who...
As the politicians are listening to this, and okay, tap into that Lyriq Bent's phone. And, no,
I mean, just think of all the scandals. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that
Anywhere where there's a
Anthony
position of-
Weiner scandal. You know, all of the scandals and stuff like that. That you know.
well, anywhere where there's position of power, there's definitely a real kinkiness going on there.
Right.
And it's not that. Listen, people who don't have that position of power are kinky too, but it's nothing because they're just regular folk. Right. But as soon as you put some power and influence in there, it's all of a sudden, they're not real people like us. Like they actually do that.
Right.
You know? Yeah, they do that. Even when they're in the office, you know.
Well,
I mean, I almost said something that would have gotten me in trouble, so I won't.
Stop it right there.
It almost came out, but there's a lot of rabbits hole in the politic world. Lot.
I need to look up who that politician is. Like it's just, and so there's.
You'll find a lot about that guy. Yeah.
Care to?
I know. I'm like, we can't.
No
I don't know if we
names?
can say.
I'm not calling any
We can't
names,
say who
man.
it's like all based on, unfortunately. I don't think.
When
But
you
all you
watch-
gotta do is a little bit of research.
Yeah,
and after you
just
watch the
dig
show,
it-
just
dig
like
into
do
it.
a bit
like,
of research and you'll make the connection.
Oh, that's so and so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Now, what was your? Well, one, you said you kind of did it in the block where it's like you kind of you're in a location. Now, did you find that harder or easier to film?
I prefer it now.
I loved it, to be honest. Yeah, at first I was like, this is insane.
This
I
is
remember he and I were
stupid.
like,
It's like,
what are
who
we
does
doing?
this
But Jen, get
crap?
over here.
Like, what do you think? I'm a
gonna work?
machine? Like, I'm trying to get through episode 1. Now I got to think about 8.
All of the episodes, it actually gave you some freedom because in a way we were talking about this earlier, you had to sort of just be present to what was going on. You couldn't, you know, we even though we were shooting all 8, we actually didn't have completed scripts for I think actually 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
So we were sort of, you know, flying in the dark a couple of times. Obviously, the creator, Sud Sutherland, directed a number of the episodes, so he was there to sort of inform us. Well, this is what's going on, and these are sort of the
Trying to get
circumstances.
you in the mind.
But what's cool about that is you couldn't be playing something that was ahead of time. Like you had to really just be with, I'm right here, right now, with what's going on. And you actually, I found like I loved when we shot in the newsroom for those 2 weeks because we really found a pace and a groove every day. It was familiar. It felt like coming to a job, which worked so well for I think the
People involved.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it.
I thought that process after the fact, after, you know, me throwing a tantrum, I thought it was definitely the way to go. Put it this way, you don't want to block shoot if you're a lazy actor. You can't be lazy if you're block shooting because you have to put in the time and you have to understand the timeline of what you're doing for the entire season, and you have to understand who the character is, not just now, but episode 7, episode 8. You got to know what type of arc your character is going through or going to go through, and you just have to be prepared with all episodes, you know. But if you're just lazy and you just want to study your lines and then go have a pint and whatever after, then block shooting is not for you. You have to be prepared mentally, physically, emotionally. You have to be prepared to block shoot. And I've never done that before, and I thought maybe I was a lazy actor. And once I got into this and I found myself just this whole preparing thing, and we had some interviews this morning. We were talking about preparation. My whole thing was I didn't like to prepare too much because I didn't want to feel robotic. I wanted to feel free and raw in what I was doing. And I can still do that, understanding how to prepare a different way to keep that raw element still that makes me feel like I'm having the time of my life. And it was understanding your character.
Yeah.
You know, and part of the preparation is just knowing who your character is. And sometimes we just know the name of our characters, but we don't know the character.
Right.
And block shooting really helped me in that way.
Now,
That's
did you
a really good point.
find because you were doing that after you were done filming, you like took the character home because you know you're like filming this for a long period of time, or
Yeah, I mean, I've never really been one of those actors to take the character home. I like to, like, kind of just, you know, plop it all out there and then go with my life. I don't know that it's necessary. Sometimes there's a bit of bleed, like especially if you have a lot of emotional stuff and you're in that headspace, there can be a bit of bleed over. But I, for the most part, tend to, like, you know, leave it at work. Because it's a job at the end of the day, you know?
It is a job, and you know, you're messing with things that we really don't know much about, which is the emotions. But I've found that consciously I leave it at home, but subconsciously I have family members and friends who tell me, you know, I don't know what was going on at work today, but, you know, so maybe subconsciously you're still in the moment of certain emotions, and but consciously I don't think so. Nor do I believe that I don't think I've taken a character home where I was behaving like the character,
Right.
like physically and, you know, cerebrally, but maybe subconsciously I think there's some emotions that do bleed out,
Yeah,
and you know, but it's a very dangerous thing, the emotion. So you want to make sure that
Be
you
aware and
have good
conscious
people
of it.
around
It's
you.
no
to
fun
let
for
you know.
everyone around you if
'Cause
you're
some
like
people-
coming home.
yeah.
You know, you're playing like the character I played on Orphan Black. That wouldn't have been fun for anybody, like to hang out with me. No, I mean maybe. She's a wild card. Anything could happen. But you know, one thing that I was just thinking about is that actually, one thing I do notice, like, yeah, maybe I don't physically take the character home with me, but I will start to see patterns in my life that reflect that of the character, which is always really interesting. You know, it's like the universe. It's so fascinating. It's almost like
Is this that little talk we had about last week, and you were kind of saying, you know, there's some things.
Wait, what little talk is that?
no, just you
can't.
just shush.
No,
You can't tease
no. I'm just saying.
I know,
no,
you can't.
No, so like,
Yeah, but that kind of thing where life
what little talk
imitates
was that?
life imitates art. Just some personal matters of the heart. Yeah, life imitating art kind of thing. You'll often find it's like what you're working on in your art is something that you're dealing with in your life. That's what I think I've noticed for me. A lot of times I get characters that are in alignment with something I'm facing, I'm up against, or, you know, an aspect of myself that I would like to explore. And so if you're open and paying attention, you'll go like, oh my gosh, that's really interesting. This thing just happened in my life and that reminds me of that scene of da 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 da. And oh, how that, sometimes it comes after the fact and you're like, oh, too bad I didn't get that information beforehand. But sometimes sometimes you're lucky while you're prepping or whatever, you know this, you're anticipating the scene and the universe is like, here's a little life lesson about what that might be. So that's cool.
And these things do happen. And sometimes you definitely, when we're doing, when I was doing She's Gotta Have It, there were a lot of those moments where you're like, you know, wow, okay, this is like that scene, you know, this is like when I'm with family, this is how things, and then you start to understand, you know, where the characters' emotions really stem from, where they're rooted, you know, because sometimes we just jump into the emotion of whatever the character is going through, but we don't necessarily have a root of that emotion. So when you start seeing it in your own life, and then you see and know the background of that situation, it's like, wow, okay, cool. Now I could understand how to root my emotions now. So you're constantly learning.
Because isn't part of the characters, like when you get a new script, or it's still part of you because it's your interpretation of the character, right? So
I mean, I said there's different schools of thought on it. I mean, I think that every character is a part of myself that's been kind of, that I'm tapping into, but also as a result, it's not even like me, it's just like a human experience, ultimately. You know what I mean?
Well, different people have different techniques, like they sensory, and they call on certain thoughts of, you know, whatever. And my whole thing was, what if you've not experienced that? How do you call on that? And so you have to have a lot of tools in the toolbox. And
Imagination.
yes, and I come from a place of imagination where just do it. You know, like Nike. You know, just do it. This is your situation. This is your circumstances. You understand human emotions. Go do it. Your imagination is the most unique and interesting tool ever. That's what I believe. But guess what? If you've had the experience of going through something emotional, and here's a scene, if you can tap into tap Tap. It's not, oh, I got to use this technique because this is the Meisner or the whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
If you can use that, use that. Use whatever. Because guess what? You need a lot of tools to build a house, to build a car, not just one tool. You can only go so far with one tool. So as many tools as you can put in your box, you do that and you use them when you find it necessary.
Yeah. I
Now,
like that.
yes.
I like that. I'm gonna use that.
Cut it out and
Permission granted. Permission granted.
yeah. Now you did kind of say seasons.
Plural.
Yeah.
Yes.
So is there been talks of a season 2?
There's been talks. It's just there's politics, so it's just a matter of I guess seeing what happens this season on WGN America, and when you tune in and those numbers are like just spectacular, then we'll figure out a way to do a season 2. But you got to tune in. Monday Eastern, 9 Central on WGN America, and check out Shoot the Messenger. Monday nights and.
At what time? What time where?
It's at 10 Eastern, 9 Central.
The network.
WGN America.
What's the Instagram handle?
The Instagram handle is STMWGNA.
Boom.
Boom. Hashtag shoot the messenger. Boom.
He's gonna do this 5 more times before it's over.
As you should. So you get season 2.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but that's what we gotta do.
Single-handedly getting us a second season.
No, but that's what we got to do to get second season, because I like this show. I like the stories. I like the characters, and I think season 2 would just take us into another dimension of this world that we think we know, but then we expose, and it's like, oh snap, this is what's going on in my legislation.
I'm very curious to see what would happen.
Oh
in the second
gosh,
season, so.
it'll be great.
Yeah, it's kind of like, because you see a lot of cop dramas, and this is not what it is, but it has the feel of it, where, they kind of do the story in the hour, you figure it out, all this other stuff. But like we were saying before, it's just like there's always a new layer every episode, where like if you watch the first 3 episodes, you're like, okay, well, I know what's going to happen then, I'm good.
Yeah.
And then you watch, episode 6 and 7, you're like, wait, what? And then you're getting it, and you're just...
Because we're dropping nuggets as we
Yeah.
move, right? And it's like a leaf. You see all the little veins spread out, right? There's maybe one main vein, but then you have all these little side stories, and then they all come right back, and they're all intertwined, and it all supports and explains everything, in the end. So you just got to pay attention. It is smartly written.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything that you filmed that got left on the cutting room floor
Probably.
that you wish that should have been in the show?
I think that opening scene should have been longer.
Oh
I
my.
do too.
Okay then.
For what we shot, they snipped it down.
How long did it take you to shoot?
Well, somebody was making mistakes on purpose. I'm not pointing any
I
fingers.
don't know who you're talking
And
about.
so we
I am a
shot
professional.
all day on that opening
Okay.
scene.
Oh my
He's
goodness.
Exaggerating. He's massively exaggerating. Actually,
Okay,
did we?
6
I feel
hours
like we
at
did
least.
that relatively fast, right? Because those
Hey, what
things
are you
are
trying to
always a
say?
bit awkward.
What are you trying to say?
It was pretty fast.
There's
You
nothing
know,
fast about it.
It wasn't overly memorable.
Wow.
Well, those things can often be so awkward.
Right.
Like
so
right now?
like right now. This isn't awkward. I think everyone's very comfortable with what we're talking about.
I think we should, it was like at least 4 hours we spent on that scene.
And it was like
I mean, it was probably the lighting. It was probably what took so long. All the lighting. Okay. Oh yeah.
it was like maybe 15 seconds.
It was.
Yeah. Was
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
when
Why
it
we
was
got to talk in
fast.
seconds now? Why we go from 4 hours to 15 seconds? We ain't even talking minutes here.
It wasn't. It was
wasn't
not. Yeah.
long.
Because
It
then I
wasn't
think it
very
was
long.
minutes. Then it would be soft porn.
It would be something else.
No, see, but I disagree. This could have been based on what I remember talking to Suds about with the intimate scenes, because it was tastefully done. It was all tastefully done. And we were talking about silhouettes and shadows and just movement of fabrics and
was the
bodies
idea of
and,
it more than actually seeing, which I think is
and
kinda
we shot some
sexier.
stuff. Yeah, we shot some stuff, but I think it was just a little too intense for certain networks at the time. So
Okay.
we had to.
Yeah, because it is on. I think maybe if it was on Netflix, then you would have got the 4 hours.
It would have been
Yeah.
like the
It would've
whole
been a
episode would have
marathon.
been just that
In a
scene.
marathon, not a half marathon. Either. 26 miles.
26.2.
Ooh, somebody knows their
Yeah,
mileage.
I'm running it.
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
So fun. Oh, yeah, we
It's
met
not
someone the
fun.
other day who's also running it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Could be fun.
No. Crazy
anyways.
people.
Yeah, crazy. Now, is there anything about your character that you want people to see that, like, you want them to pay attention to? Because, you know, sometimes you can watch TV passively. Like, you're just, you know, it's there, okay, fine, all this other stuff. Is there something that in particular that you kind of want them to kind of get?
Let me start this one off.
Yeah,
because,
you take it,
Because
you
here's
take
the
it.
thing. What I want is for people to hit me up at Lyriq Bent
Oh,
on
my.
Insta and on Twitter,
Okay.
and let me know what you think of the show when you watch it, because it is very hard to watch this show passively, because it's so interesting and it's so gripping and it's so smart and intelligent that you can't just sit there and pretend or just have something else going on. If you're watching it, you're watching it, and once you're watching, you really don't want to make time for anything else. So I really don't want anyone to look for anything, because if it's not found, then it wasn't there. That's just how I see it. And if you feel like you need to express what you wanted to see, hit me up on my Twitter handle and let me know, because then we'll know what to do for season 2.
And what's your Twitter handle, Leah?
At Lyriq Bent.
What is it?
At Lyriq,
Can you spell that? Can you spell that for us?
LYRIQ at Lyriq Bent.
Gosh. Well, I want people to know that my Instagram handle is at Elyse ELYSE _ Levesque.
Not Ulysses.
ESQUE. That's Instagram. And Twitter. No, okay.
Since we're doing social media, what's the social media for the show again?
It is at it's STMWGNA,
Hashtag shoot the messenger.
which is Shoot the Messenger WGA America. That's the
WGN
acronym.
America.
That's the acronym.
So how many
of
times, because I think you mentioned that you were up since 5 or 4 this morning?
4.
Doing other interviews. So how many times did you have to
Okay, so this one here. Okay, so just as the interview starts, my phone is ringing on vibrate.
at 4 o'clock in the morning?
Yes.
Because you're
It's my manager is on the East Coast is
Okay.
calling me to make sure that I hit up the handles, the Twitter, the Insta, all the social media handles, because I'm horrible at it. I do not do it enough. I'm somewhat of a introvert, and I kind of keep my business to myself. And I'm always being told, this is a new era. This is not how it used to be. You got to do this. This is what you can get a job because of your social media.
Yeah.
You could lose a job, more importantly, because you got. So this one is saying,
I had issues with all of that.
I had issues. Oh, I don't want to do that. I just feel so weird.
It does feel weird.
Well, yeah, I feel weird, but guess what? I'm getting phone calls 4 o'clock in the morning saying, make sure you do this. So
yeah, needless to say, at the end of every interview, as the people would be like, okay, great, thanks for talking to us, Lyriq would be like, wait.
no, I didn't say wait. I was smooth with it. I was smooth with it, they'll be like, all right, and so that's Elyse and Lyriq, Shoot the Messenger. Guys, thanks for coming out. We're like, thank you very much. And you know what? Make sure that on Monday nights at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central, you tune in to WGN America and you watch a show. I was just doing what I was told to do. I was given permission, because as a Canadian, you need permission before you feel like you can just do things, right?
Well, I mean, how long you been living in America for?
2005.
Okay,
Oh,
13.
yeah.
13, 14.
You should have got that out of your system.
Yeah, I'm not quite there yet. I'm only at the 6-year mark.
It's a different. I can't explain it to people who. I mean, it's a different.
It's a different,
different mentality.
Yeah.
But it's different. It's not better. It's not worse. It's just different. And I think, being Canadian, we have that edge because we have that other side, that we display that the world loves.
With the politeness.
They call it politeness, but it's just how it is in Canada, I guess, right? And here it's very, very capitalistic type of mentality. Is go out and go get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't want to say step on whoever you need to step on, but you step on who you got to step on, I guess. And we're Canadians. They want to do it, and they might step on you, but they'll reach back and it's like, all right, buddy, now come on.
I am so sorry.
You can step on my shoulder. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Let me help you up.
Just giving them all the stereotypes.
Yeah.
No, but I love it. I love it out here
I love
in
living
LA,
out here,
and
yeah.
you know, I think
Is that your plea for them not to revoke your?
Yeah, right. I am very happy. I am very content.
I am
in my
content, and I
LA
love
life.
being here. It's great. I like the way things are done to a certain degree, and I think we can learn from each other. And definitely,
of course.
I've been learning a lot from being out here, and I think that's my edge. I believe that. It's probably no truth to it, but that's my edge of having both, you know, inside of the borders. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I think that's it makes for people who've experienced diversity in no matter what you do, whatever business you're in, to go with it. So again, like, you know, when you see the cast and everything there, it's like
normal.
Yeah, that's the
like
normal.
actual
That's society
representation
that we
of
see.
life.
Yeah. So, you know, for people who haven't seen it, or they're in a place where, you know, it's not normal to see that many people or people with different accents and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Not only is it a great drama, you're seeing diversity in a positive light, not in the negative stereotypes that you see everywhere else.
Absolutely.
You know, portrayed.
And even the stereotypes that you do see, you get an understanding of why it's a
Why they
stereotype.
exactly?
You
There's
know?
a lot more
That
explained.
it's not just choice, as a lot
Yeah.
of people think. Oh, why don't you just go get a job? And
Oh yeah, why did they get wrapped up in the trouble
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever?
you-
It's
like, you get to- you
survival
gotta-
and understanding.
It's kind of like a little bit of a backstory.
Yeah, yeah,
So-
we care. We learn to care about all of these people and understand each other a bit better. You know.
And I think that's what we have in Canada is the acceptance of difference as opposed to tolerance, because tolerance has an expiration date, and I think that's what we're seeing right now in America is that you know, especially with the type of leadership we have right now, that's displaying this expiration of tolerance, is that you know. Okay, enough. Okay, go back to whatever. You know, we want to make this great again. Like it's just to me, that's what it comes
Who are
across
you
like.
referring to?
I'm just talking about certain leaders of certain
Powers that be.
free worlds. And listen, the truth is the truth. I'm not afraid to speak the truth. And right now, I think just how things are being led is just dangerous, because it shows the lack of acceptance of the same of the very citizens you have in this country. So. I'm just very
promotes
lucky.
division,
It promotes division, and you can't, if you have a gap, you gotta fill that gap with a bridge, and that bridge seems like it's been burnt. So we got to figure that out. But this show is supposed to, show you that this cohesiveness is very possible and doable, and you just gotta accept and not just tolerate.
Yeah, it hits a lot of stuff. Like you can even talk about like the Me Too movement.
Yeah.
You know, with that, it's
yeah.
just so many. Even beyond Daisy's character, her sister, I forgot what her
Chloe,
name.
yeah.
Chloe's character,
Yeah.
and all that stuff that
She goes through.
She's going
close,
through.
Yeah, she's tied into the story too.
Yeah, so it's just like you see, and then the father, and it's just like so many different elements that are touching today without shouting out that this is the Me Too movement.
Absolutely. Well, and
Right.
and another
Good
thing
observation.
too, like I mean, it's so on point in terms of this crazy relationship that's happening right now between the media and the government, and this whole fake news thing, how people are receiving, their information. I mean, that's one thing before we really got into and like we were talking about earlier, like this has been going on forever, right? But we're more acutely aware of it because we all have access. We have immediate access to information and to a variety, and we can put our opinions out immediately about what we think, and we can share the things that we're behind, like that we stand for. We can publicly share that. Where that's a new thing, but yeah, it's this show taught me just so much about how journalism is so important, and the facts being accurate are instrumental, and how even the slightest thing as like the wrong letter in a name can cause a massive ripple effect. So there's a huge responsibility on the media's part to step forward and tell the truth.
And take the time to get it right.
And
Yeah.
in your situation, it was literally a letter.
Yeah,
and you
yes.
saw the ramifications. That
Massive.
now you have people telling all lies,
Crazy
like,
stories.
Like there's just no
Crazy.
research before. It's I think the talk is me first, as opposed to it being correct news. It's just who
Yeah,
can
there's
get it out
such a
there
rush,
first.
right? Because there's this immediate, like, I need immediacy.
I heard it here
and
first. I heard it here,
action, yeah.
and there's no research to make sure that it's correct.
Well, you have a lot of things. You obviously have the social media going on. People wanting to be personalities versus actually reporters, stuff like that. And that kind of comes to, did you have somebody on set who was actually, or did they speak to somebody as far as like what a journalist should be?
Yes.
And did they have somebody on set as far as, because I know you played cops several times, Frank, now Kevin. Did you have somebody on set where it's just like, okay, yeah, but you might want to do it like this because this is how we do it in the force? Did you have some people like that on set, or was it?
Well, we had a woman named Lisa Priest who used to work for the Globe and Mail, and she was, I think, the advisor that Suds and Jen went to for all the scripts, and she would look over and corroborate and be like, yes, that's absolutely plausible, that would happen, that's real, no, it wouldn't go down like that, it would go down like this. And she wasn't with us on set, but I did have the privilege of sitting with her for like a couple of hours before we started shooting.
Okay.
She was massively informative. And
The Globe and Mail is a newspaper in
Canada.
It's just like,
Everyone's like, Globe and Mail. Yeah, it's our big newspaper in Canada.
It's global,
Globe
and we don't get it in the mail.
I know. I think we've been saying like Globe and Mail for like, because you just tired. People are like, what's going on right now?
What is happening? It's been a long day.
I played a lot of officers over the years, yes, and I did speak to a detective just because the world that I was in now is totally different, because it's now interacting or intersecting with the media and the political world, where before I just played a cop,
Right.
And I was just coming off of like 5 years playing a staff sergeant, which was just like totally non-interesting, as this character. And so I spoke to several officers that I've met over the years, and it was like, oh yeah, all those like rabbits, it's like, yeah.
Like, wait, what?
Yeah, like
Oh,
rabbits.
Like rabbits, like
yes.
Going at it like rabbits?
It's like these things happen. These things
Oh,
happen.
I'm like,
Oh, I
wait,
see.
what?
I know I was lost for a second.
Rabbit hole, rabbit. I'm trying to keep the theme. Come on, stick with me.
No, I'm with you.
Okay.
Like, he's talking about these like relationships
Okay.
between
Relationships,
reporters
and
I thought,
Yeah,
I guess
people
mine's in the gutter.
Like, the worlds interact.
Okay.
They interact, and
They rely on each other.
Yeah, they rely on each other. It's a family. Just because they interact doesn't mean that it's just like dirty and nasty. No, there's interaction, and so you guys are so dirty right now. Rabbit. Your listeners are gonna walk around there like rabbits. What's up, Bob? But so I did speak to a few of my officer friends, and they gave me scenarios and stories, and came on and helping me with certain episodes on how to deal with it, and if so and so found out, what ramifications could be, and if you're talking like the scene I had in the bathroom when I was talking to you, I had to be very, very mindful of my surroundings and making sure that there was no wandering ears listening in, because it could come back and bite me based off of what information.
You get in a lot of trouble.
Because if something happens and it's only me or the cops that should know, and it's in the papers,
It's an
so
issue.
Yeah.
a lot of problems, So it was fun. It was fun playing this officer, because it wasn't just procedural in the cop world. It was procedural in the politic world. It's procedural in the media. It was a procedural. It was a procedural ensemble.
And now, did you guys audition or did you get the call?
Well, we had a slightly different experience because they came to you, right?
Yeah, they came to me with this project. I've worked with Suds and Jen for years. Actually, our careers are parallel, Suds and myself. The first guest star role that I had was a show called Blue Murder, and Suds wrote that episode.
Okay.
And that was the very first starring job I had, and I think that was his first big gig he wrote.
Gotcha.
And our careers just kind of went like this together, and if I looked over to my right, there he was. If he looked to his left, there I was. And so we didn't really get to do much, but we kept growing, and then we started to intersect. I did a show called Home Again, a film that we shot, which was an amazing film talking about deportation and moving into like immigrants moving to Canada, US, UK, as little children, and never becoming citizens for whatever reason. The parents just didn't understand the
Right.
politics of it all, and these people get into a bar fight, anything punishable of 6 months or a year, they automatically got deported back to wherever they came from. And now that was home, and they don't know it because they left as babies and things like that. So we did that project. We did a project called Guns, which was
Right,
very
those
much
together
like
a
what
lot,
it could have been an extension of.
Shoot the
Guns could have been Shoot the Messenger because it was an extension
Gotcha.
of that.
Okay.
Because it talked about the politics of guns and how to get into neighborhoods and the politicians who make that happen. Because guns are not made in these neighborhoods, much less the countries.
Given the fact what
right?
just happened too.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we did that, and then there was another project we did, and so they brought this to me. But I had just come off of Book of Negroes.
Love that.
Thank you.
I actually read the book, and then when it came out, I was actually leaving to come back to the U.S. And it was like talking about in Canada. I'm like, really? And then it came to BET. I'm like,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Love just
Book of
great
Negroes.
storytelling.
Yeah, check that one out too.
Yeah.
But we did that, and I loved it. And I was like, oh, my creative juice, there it is. I'm not just playing certain characters. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to continue to do things like this. And then this project came, Shoot the Messenger. And I was like, no, I'm not even looking there. So I didn't even look. But Suds or Jen didn't come. It was the producers that brought it to me
Gotcha.
of the network. And I said, not interested. And then my manager did some research to make sure that it was something we wanted to pass on because I didn't even look at anything.
Right.
Found out it was Jen and Suds. I was like, oh, okay, let's talk. And so we sat with them. I'm like, yeah, I'm good to go. Yeah, we don't have to just, let's do it. Because I just love their
Yeah.
work, So, and then we
Amazing.
saw this wonderful one.
And they found me. I auditioned. I actually put myself on tape. My mom was in town visiting me here in LA.
Okay.
And she came to help me I had to drive up to Vancouver to go shoot up there for like 3-4 months. So it was like a couple days before I was leaving, and I only got like a handful of sides, and so I threw it down, and I'd heard, I think maybe from my manager, like, there's interest in you for this, but I was trying to you hear stuff all the time,
Right.
and nothing comes of it. So I filmed it and then kind of put it out of my mind and went to go do this other job, and then I think it was like a few weeks later, there's talk of getting you in on the callback, and the callback was happening in LA. And I actually ended up missing the callback because of my schedule. And then I came back down here, I think, had a bit of time off. So I came back down, and I went, they were like, okay, they're going to do a Skype callback, which I don't think I'd ever done before, where I had to go to this space in Hollywood, and they set up a computer for Suds to call in. And I thought that there would be, and I think there were other girls who came kind of later or something, but funny, I had a bit of an advantage because my friend Max was the reader, and he had been the reader for all of the other girls who had done the other callbacks. So he was like, we had 10 minutes before Suds was Skyping in, so he's like, I'm just going to give you all the notes.
Oh, wow.
He's like, these are all the notes that all
Supposed
the
to
other girls
happen.
got, and I was like, oh my God, this is like so naughty, but yes, tell me everything. So I did the Skype callback, and it went great. I really felt like a strong connection with Suds. I think that's one of the main things that drew me to
She was
doing
getting
the project.
inside information before she was.
I was practicing.
She was
I
practicing.
I was
She
practicing.
she
It was
supposed to happen.
character
She
was supposed to
research. And then I think it was maybe it was a long process actually. I think the total thing was like 3 months by the time I found out I got the part. But
Wow.
I ended up going back and did a chemistry read with him and Lucas Bryant, who was also already cast. And the chemistry was just so undeniable. So,
Went into the 4 hours.
but it's so funny because I had no idea. I actually thought that I didn't do a good job. Like I remember being like, well, you blew it, but it's okay. You'll go back and shoot the rest of the show in Vancouver and continue on with your life. So I was really surprised when I found out, the following week, like you're their number one, but then it was still quite a while before I got the actual phone call that I got it. So
Oh, you waited a while.
it was like I said, I think I auditioned in April, and I found out the very end of June, maybe beginning of July. I was actually like July 1st or something that I found out that I actually got the part. So you just never know. Sometimes you can find out literally the same day.
I
Like
thought you were
with
gonna find out the
Orphan.
same day because it was done. The
Yeah,
same
that's
day.
so funny.
We all chimed on that. Like the moment you left the room.
Yeah.
Suds looked at us and was like, "Well, so what do you think?" And we all had a smirk on our face and we're like, "Yeah, the redhead."
So funny.
The
Yeah,
redhead.
so funny because I was like,
Yeah, it
I
was
bombed it. I blew it.
And the looks was very different. The 3 women, very different. It was pretty pretty versatile look. So
But you just never know. Like with Orphan, I think I put it on tape and I had a callback, and I literally left, and maybe 2 hours later I was leaving. I was staying at my friend's place, and I walked out of her. And the only reason they knew where it was because it was Tat Maslany, the main girl. She's one of my best friends.
Oh, wow.
So I was staying with her in Toronto, and I walked outside, and suddenly my phone rang, and at the same time, one of the drivers from the set was there, who I had met through Tat, telling me to get in the van, and I was like, "What's going on? What's happening?" He's like, "You have to come with me to the table read." I was like, "What? I literally just auditioned like 3 hours ago. How am I? What?" So sometimes you can find out like the same day.
Those are the fun ones when you're just not expecting it, and they're like, they say something weird like, "Get in the van."
Yeah,
You go to the table.
I've been taught my whole life never to
get in
do
the
that.
van.
Creepy
The one
van.
time you get in the van. Yeah.
So
Go
are
to the
there
table read.
any projects that you guys have coming out or you're working on right now?
I've got an independent film that I shot at the end of last year that hopefully will do the festival circuit called Corruption of Divine Providence. Okay. So that's coming out, and then I did this web series with some friends of mine that was entirely improvisational. So that was a very new experience, and I don't actually know when that's going to come out, but they shot it beautifully. It was one of the most interesting experiences that I've had as an actor. Yeah.
That's the one that made you want to go back into theater.
No, I actually did theater last year for like kind of my first time. I've done some theater where I've been part of a massive ensemble or come on stage for a total of 30 seconds. So this was the first time I did a play called Burn This last year, it's a four-hander, and I'm pretty much on stage the whole 2.5 hours. And it was a workout, but I absolutely fell in love with the theater experience, so I want to do more of that.
Good on you.
A bit hard in LA, but you know.
I got a few things coming out this year, which is gonna make it seem like busy, but you know, you could do something 5 years ago and it's coming out now, right? And that just seems to be the situation. But we're doing the second season of She's Gonna Have It. We'll be starting that soon, and this is coming out. And Easter weekend, I have a film, Acrimony, that I did with Taraji P. Henson.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
It's starting to do press right now.
Yeah, I was starting to do press, and so that's gonna be a killer, no pun intended. You gotta check that out. It's nothing like you've seen Tyler do. This is a Tyler Perry film, and he's very, very, very excited about this, as we all are. Talk about grueling shooting schedule. Don't want to get into that right now, but it makes Shoot the Messenger look like child's play.
Wow, really?
But it really, Shoot the Messenger really prepared me for it, because the work ethic was so different working on working on Shoot the Messenger, that when I got to Acrimony, it was like, oh God, that's what that was all about. Preparation, you know, like it prepared me for this shooting schedule. I did a film for Netflix as well in Atlanta. It's called Napoli Ever After.
Yeah, I did see. Did it come out yet, or?
No, it didn't come out yet. I did that with Sanaa Lathan, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, I call it coming of hair story, because it's so timely as well, with just women, in general, feeling, beautiful and
Not fitting into the box.
And so it's a beautiful coming of hair story is what I call it, because I love finding hooks for movies that I do. That I pride myself in doing that, and that's my tagline, coming of hair. So if you hear it anywhere else, they stole that junk from me.
Okay.
But that's exactly how I'm going to push it, because it just makes sense to me. And I just finished a film for with Richard Dreyfuss. It's called Astronaut.
Oh, dope.
Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
that was fun,
cool.
working with a vet like him, and learning aspects of the business and the game, and hearing the stories, and it was great working with him. So a few things coming out this year. You just follow me on @Lyriq Bent, and you'll see me kind of talk about these things along the way as they're coming to screen, so that you don't miss it if you want to see it.
Okay.
What's with the smirk? Stop
I
smirking.
like he's like
Nobody's
at Lyriq.
Nobody's smirking.
So,
well, TK was smirking.
so a few things before we get out of here. Like I said, you definitely have to check out the show. Shoot the Messenger. It's on WGN, but I can't do it as much service as you guys can because you were in it, and we've talked about it. So, kind of give a reason why the audience should watch it, and then also the time, the date, and the social. Before we
You're
get
good
out
at
of it.
coming up with catchphrases.
Why to watch it?
Well, yeah. Why watch it, Lyriq?
Well, other than the fact that you and I are both in it,
That's obvious.
no, really, it's because it's a great show that you're going to enjoy. It's a different look on procedurals for sure. You're going to be entertained. You're going to be informed, and it's going to challenge your your IQ in terms of what you think you know and how you think your community is made up in terms of the political choices that are made and what you can do to curb it in the way you want it your community to be. So it's informative in a lot of ways. I think you should tune in for that reason, if anything.
And when and where would we tune in to see that?
I think the word on the street or the buzz is it's 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central
Something
on
like that, yeah.
WGN America.
What day?
I think it's on Monday, 26th. I think it premieres Monday, 26th, something like
and
that.
if I wanted to
Hashtag it.
find more on social media,
Yeah,
where would I go to find
hashtag
that?
shoot the messenger or go to STMWGNA and drop a line and find out what the buzz is about the show.
Okay.
You see what I did there?
I
See
did
what I
the
did?
buzz. And where can people find you guys on social media?
You can find me
Your local
at
comedy club.
local comedy club,
We're going on tour.
at Lyriq Bent for everything.
For everything.
Yes.
Oh, you keep it simple. I need to simplify mine. At Elyse_Levesque on Instagram, and then on Twitter, I think it's at least ATLEAST Levesque. At least Levesque. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they said it. Monday, Shoot the Messenger, WGN. My name is TK Trinidad. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I've done quite a few interviews, but this is by far the funniest and weirdest all at the same time.
Because we're Canadian.
Yeah, I think it's
There's like an understanding,
they've now
T-dot
seen
in the
how
house.
corny we all are. Other than that, thank you guys for joining us. You can find me on everything at TK Trinidad. AfterBuzz Spotlight on.
The 6.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.